We begin in Quito, Ecuador. My name is Carla Gonzalez. This is From the South, the morning news brief on Telesur English. We begin this new edition right now. We begin in Chile, where the right-wing former president Sebastián Piñera has won the runoff presidential election. Piñera and his supporters of the Vamos Chile coalition celebrated into the night. The Chilean billionaire won by clear margin over his center-left rival Alejandro Guillier, after opinion polls had predicted a much tighter race. Piñera beat Guillier in 13 of Chile's 15 regions. Outgoing President Michelle Bachelet called to congratulate him.
I wanted to call you to congratulate you on your victory and to wish you luck in your mandate. You and I love Chile. We love our country. We want the best for everyone. I wanted to say this on the phone, but also seeing each other like we are on the monitors, just like Chile is seeing us, and to wish you great success.
President, thank you very much for your words. I have never had the slightest doubt that both you and I want the best for Chile. And I want to ask for something, because I know that your experience and your wisdom as president can help us a lot in different paths in the future.
So let's take a look at those results. Sebastián Piñera got 54.58% of these votes, while Alejandro Guillier won 45.42%, giving the billionaire and the former president a 9-point lead. The turnout was low at just 48.5%. Some Chileans felt there was not a big difference between the two candidates, which may help to explain the low turnout. But others felt the future of their country was at stake. Let's see how Sunday's second round developed in this report.
They went to vote, to choose the destiny of their country for the next 4 years. Over 43,000 polling stations opened at 8 a.m. for Chile's presidential runoff election between billionaire former President Sebastián Piñera and Senator and former journalist Alejandro Guillier. People went to choose knowing the importance of their decision.
It is not the same voting for one candidate or the other, but the political class that is behind is the same. So the dynamics that are produced, the link generated between the high ranks to the common people are not very different. People's faith and hope, that idea that the country is really going to change with one candidate and not another, I truly don't think it will be like that.
It does determine certain conditions that can be seen with respect to the weight and development of social rights.
With the race expected to be a tight one, the current president, Michelle Bachelet, arrived to cast her ballot and invited all Chileans to do the same.
If there's something that makes us equal on days like this, it is the vote. We all have the right to make decisions and to say who will be the next president of Chile. So that's my invitation. Everyone can participate.
Even though no major polls had been published in the past month since the first round, both candidates said that they were confident of victory. Former president and conservative candidate of the Chile Vamos coalition, Sebastián Piñera, said that he was full of hope.
We are calm and happy and look forward to the results of this election with great humility and hope. Humility because this is a great companion in life, and especially in politics. And with a lot of hope because I have the firm conviction that we will win these elections and that the best times will come to all Chilean homes.
For his part, the center-left presidential hopeful, Alejandro Guillier, an independent supported by the new majority coalition, the current ruling coalition backing President Bachelet, was calm.
I believe that we'll win with a clear difference, narrow but clear, not so precise. We're very optimistic.
The outcome of this election was being closely watched across Latin America as an indicator of which way the political winds are blowing.
After 3 weeks of confusion and outcry, the Electoral Court in Honduras has declared that the current president, Juan Orlando Hernandez, won the presidential election. Opposition supporters immediately took to the streets to protest, as they have done almost every day since the poll on November 26, to denounce what they see as fraud. The Electoral Authority insists its recount has confirmed the result, but the opposition say they will not recognize it.
After computing all of the ballots, after resolving all of the challenges, the tribunal has got the final results, and we make this known to the Honduran people in this declaration. For the President of the Republic, we have the results, as you can see reflected on the screen. We have the National Party of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez Alvarado, with 42.95%.
We absolutely reject the declaration of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal. We do not recognize any action that is committed by this criminal organization for electoral fraud organized by the government of Juan Orlando Hernandez.
After the final result was declared, the Organization of American States called for new elections in Honduras. The head of the OAS observer mission repeated that the poll had been marred by irregularities.
La MOE considera que ha observado un proceso de baja calidad.
The Electoral Observer Mission considered that it has observed a process of low electoral quality and therefore cannot settle the doubts over what has been announced today. The mission regrets once again the incidents of violence that have occurred in the elections, in different phases of the electoral process, and calls once again for all actors to stay calm and act responsibly.
Puerto Rico usually receives more than 5 million visitors a year. However, 2 months after Hurricane Maria battered the island, tourists are still a rare sight. Tourism peak season in Puerto Rico provided jobs for around 80,000 people. Once popular tours on the eastern coast of the island are now deserted, and most of the restaurants are closed. The exception are for the restaurants that replace their dwindling tourism business with a rise in demand from local residents.
Local customers that don't have light at home. We have a generator and cold goods and food. A lot of people come to eat here and don't have to go queue in the supermarket because we have food already prepared.
3 months after 2 Category 5 hurricanes devastated many parts of the Caribbean, thousands of children across the region still need support, according to the United Nations Children's Fund. UNICEF estimates that both Hurricane Irma and Maria have left some 350,000 children in need of humanitarian assistance. In Dominica, 35% of the children are still not enrolled in educational activities, while in Antigua and Barbuda, many families remain in shelters, unable to return home. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Impeachment proceedings have begun against Ecuadorian Vice President Jorge Glass. Last week, the National Court sentenced Glass to 6 years in prison for criminal association in connection with bribes paid by the Brazilian construction company Odebrecht. But Glass remains vice president until the National Assembly holds a political trial to remove him. Henry Pillajo has more.
At midday on Sunday, the decision by 4 of the 7 members of the Public Administration Committee was announced. The Speaker of the National Assembly spoke to the media and said they had decided to go ahead with the request from the opposition to open a political trial or impeachment process against Jorge Glass.
We have decided to accept the process and proceed to a political judgment against the Vice President of the Republic. So we're sending the case to the Constitutional Court, which will decide whether it should go ahead or not. We're therefore immediately asking the Secretary of the Assembly and the committee to prepare the documents and send them to the Constitutional Court.
The committee meeting was attended by 2 opposition members of the Assembly and 2 from the governing Alianza País movement. At the meeting, the 28 legal arguments relating to crimes against the public administration were presented. These have to do with acts of embezzlement and corruption. The Speaker of the Assembly said these were in line with legal requirements and the Constitution.
Specific evidence was presented here of crimes against the public administration. These are related to bribery and the misuse of public funds.
Note that the process of a political trial against Jorge Glass has been accepted. The report is being sent to the Constitutional Court, and the court will have a maximum of 10 days to accept the report or not. The case will then return to the same Public Administration Committee and then go to Oversight Committee and finally to full National Assembly, which is the body that will finally decide on the removal of Jorge Glass as Vice President. That's the news for now. Back to you in the studio.
That was Henry Pillajo from Quito. The Peruvian president, Pedro Pablo Kuczynski, has gone on television to apologize to the nation for not explaining his links to the Brazilian construction company Odebrecht. Kuczynski is facing moves to impeach him after it emerged that Odebrecht had paid millions of dollars to companies linked to him. But the president continued to deny that he had favored the company with contracts or other deals. Over 100,000 Peruvians are unemployed because Odebrecht projects are being stalled. According to the Civil Workers Union, that number will double if the Peruvian construction companies that are also accused of corruption are intervened.
There is only enough money for a single quick meal. Alberto has been unemployed for almost a year since the construction project where he was working was intervened because Odebrecht was the company in charge. Odebrecht was accused of corruption for bribing several Peruvian authorities.
It doesn't matter if businessmen steal. If they are in jail, they will always have money. Meanwhile, us, the people who live out of their salaries and don't have a steady job, how are we going to live? We're trying to survive selling candies or anything that we can.
This is the situation for 100,000 workers, and this number could rise to at least 200,000 in the case of a possible intervention by the Peruvian construction companies Graña and Montero. J.J. Comet and the ICC-GCA are both accused of bribing former President Toledo to obtain state contracts together with Odebrecht.
Those projects are well handled. They shouldn't be stopped.
We don't have anything. Our children ask us for food. They are starving, and those responsible go to jail. But it is a golden jail.
Christmas is coming, and right now, many construction projects are being stalled. So now, we're just surviving.
Construction workers demand that the government and the legislative authorities take actions to make sure that the resources go first to pay the salaries of the workers, and also to avoid stalling construction work when they sanction the corrupt.
The chain of payments are broken because workers are not getting paid, so the contractors and the material providers don't get paid either. They are all forgotten.
Civil construction leaders also point out that the inability of Kuczynski's government to come up with big projects is also the cause of growing unemployment in the area.
The dialogue between the Venezuelan government and the opposition is set to continue in the second week of January. There was no breakthrough at their meeting in the Dominican Republic on Friday, but they did agree to keep talking.
One by one, the foreign ministers of the countries supporting the dialogue arrived, along with the former Premier of Spain, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, and the President of the Dominican Republic, Danilo Medina, and then the opposition delegation, first Hoyo Borges, and the rest of the committee. President Nicolas Maduro's representatives were optimistic that they could move forward with the 6th point on the agenda: a truth commission, political, economic, electoral guarantees, a balance of powers, and the social and economic situation in the country.
We hope that this time they take it on fully, that they understand they are sitting at the table with President Maduro, and we hope they don't get up and leave, that none of us leave until we reach a satisfactory agreement.
For more than 8 hours they talked. The hope was that they would sign all the agreements, but that will now have to wait for more discussions on the 11th and 12th of January.
Simplemente queremos decir que se ha avanzado notablemente.
We just want to say that there has been real progress. As I said last time, there are 6 big themes that we are discussing, and each has various sub-themes. Some of this still need more technical discussion, and we cannot announce the progress we have made because this is a whole package. So until we agree everything, we can't say nothing, because one thing depends on another.
The good thing is that everyone is still talking.
Lo que hemos observado el día de hoy,
we saw today that both sides behaved very seriously. This is a process of negotiation at the high level demanded by the challenges facing Venezuela.
The government delegation lamented the efforts by the U.S. administration to torpedo the talks by issuing a communique about deepening sanctions if President Maduro doesn't give way.
This is our answer to that threat. We're sitting here continuing these talks, and we are confident that on January the 11th, the dialogue will make progress.
And the opposition is making progress.
The atmosphere at the talks has been positive. We had advanced on some points, and we still have to advance on others. Remember, we want an agreement that can be implemented in a verifiable way. So since we haven't concluded all the topics, we need another meeting to reach a permanent agreement.
The countdown to an agreement is speeding up. 2018 is a year when Venezuela will elect its president. And although there is no breakthrough yet, the dialogue is heading into a new year.
Venezuela's humanized childbirth plan was launched earlier this year. It's an initiative that aims to support women through their entire pregnancy and childbirth, help combat obstetric violence, and cut down maternal mortality rates. Our correspondent in Caracas, Freddie Gillingham, went along to see how the program was doing.
Tucked up on the fourth floor of a public maternity hospital in western Caracas, a group of women sit side by side, reflecting on their personal experiences of pregnancy. A community leader leads the session. She is one of hundreds of newly trained midwives. Training these community midwives is a central pillar of this program, and becoming one is a role everyone must play.
Childbirth was being medicalized too much, and many generations were afraid that it was painful and awful. We've heard so many bad experiences, so we think that this cesarean is the solution, that is easier and less painful, among other things. But what we want firstly through this program is to let women know, because the women have been isolated most of the time. The doctors don't explain the procedures and its reasons and what they do to us. So we give them the tools and the knowledge of their rights that sometimes we know, but we don't know how to practice it.
In 2011, Venezuela became the first nation in the world to recognize obstetric violence as a legal category and a punishable offense. Caesarean rates in some private clinics are as high as 90%. To counter this, the humanized birth plan concentrates on participation, incorporation and empowerment, to let women take back control of how they want their pregnancy to be.
I think the humanized childbirth is a very important project, not just for pregnant women, but for all women, because it makes us closer to this process. As you know, many times the pregnancy doesn't have high priority. And with this humanized childbirth, we are more connected.
The initiative was launched as a result of pressure from various women's organizations across the country. Shelters for pregnant women living in extreme poverty and community outreach are all part of the program. It seeks to move childbirth away from the medicalization that dominates the private healthcare market and put it back in the hands of the community, who can all have a say, one at a time. Freddie Gillingham, Telesur, Caracas.
Rescue work is continuing in the southern Chilean village of Villa Santa Lucia after a landslide killed at least 8 people, with another 12 still missing. Saturday's mudslide destroyed 20 homes and buried much of the small community, close to a popular national park. Among the missing is a policeman who was guarding the village voting center ahead of Sunday's election. Voting in Santa Lucia was suspended. Indigenous rappers in Brazil are making noise over land rights as the National Congress considers proposals which threaten to turn their ancestral homeland into areas used for mining.
Rural indigenous rappers are making a name for themselves in Brazil, not just within their communities, but also across social media. Brazil's rapidly expanding mining industry is threatening the country's Aboriginal people. The young are taking a stand and using new ways to protest demarcation on their territories. The arrival of a right-wing government in Brazil has given the country's agribusiness even more space to thrive. According to recent data, 33 proposals are currently awaiting approval in the National Congress. Our land doesn't get us dirty. What makes us dirty is your papers and laws. Lyrics and songs are challenging the powers that be, and they're tackling racial prejudice too. Indigenous struggles are often portrayed as backward and out of touch with the modern values in Brazilian media. But these viral rap videos show an emerging indigenous youth culture, in touch with the rapidly changing pace of technology. But not everyone is aware of this new battleground.
I'm very concerned about your generations. Our youngsters are not interested in our culture, in our music, in our hairdresses, our dance, all our customs. I'm really concerned about young people. They need to continue our fight, what we are doing here, standing for our rights. They need to pursue that fight.
The protection of indigenous land has been on top priority since the implementation of the Brazilian Constitution in 1988. However, since incumbent President Michel Temer took office, his low popularity has meant he has had to reach out to some less favourable allies to cement his power. In return for backing from Brazil's agribusiness lobby, Temer has given his support to their initiatives, provoking opposition in all its forms.
The Havana International Latin American Film Festival has been a cultural and artistic landmark for decades. Let's learn more about this event, which has been held for the 39th year running.
Once again, Havana is like a great movie. People discussing scripts, lights, cinematography, sound or acting. The Cuban capital is, during 10 days, the center of the new Latin American cinema. Audiences jump from room to room, using the best of their time to see as many films as possible.
I just saw the movie, El Cigala. It's very beautiful, very pretty. And other people are debating about other Latin American and foreign movies. So this becomes a cultural and social event in which people debate, talk and critique.
The presence of Diego El Cigala in Havana has been one of the highlights of the festival. The Spanish flamenco singer presented here the documentary called Indestructible, The Soul of Salsa. The production shows a journey through the history of this musical genre that started in Cuba and then included regions like Colombia, New York, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic and Miami.
Lo bueno que tiene esto de la salsa y de haber podido hacer esa elección.
What's great about salsa is to have been able to make that selection from Héctor Orcheo Feliciano. It has been like bringing the greatest back without leaving flamenco, because otherwise these geniuses would have been there anyways.
For Colombian filmmaker Jaime Osorio, one of the features of this event is that movies go over the conflicts and concerns of Latin American people. He came to the festival to present his film Seven Heads, a movie he defines as full of tension and dark as he reflects on human violence.
Ser cineasta latinoamericano implica una responsabilidad, y esa responsabilidad es
being a Latin American filmmaker implies a responsibility, and that responsibility is to talk about what's happening in our countries. The most unequal, violent and contaminated. When you have the opportunity to make a film, well, it's a microphone to talk to those who have to make decisions, assuming this with great responsibility.
This film, called The Fourth Company, is among the most acclaimed by audiences. The feature took 10 years to film and had as subject the real prisons in Mexico. It has 20 nominations from the Mexican Academy of Sciences and Art. Through fiction and investigation, the documentary is a critical look at the Mexican penitentiary system.
El 70% de las cárceles ahora en México tienen lo que le llamamos el autogobierno.
70% of prisons in Mexico have what they call a self-government, which means that jails are co-administered with the penitentiary authority, and that brings a lot of issues within the penitentiary system. Then our movie is a portrait of an old story from the 70s, but that still has that relevance. That's why our film is a catalyst for a public conversation about this.
The Latin American countries with the biggest presence in this film festival are Argentina, Mexico, Cuba, Brazil, and Chile. This year, 19 fiction features, 18 first words, and 23 documentaries will compete for the Coral Award, among other genres.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
A suicide bomb and gun attack on a church in the western Pakistani city of Quetta has killed at least 9 people and wounded dozens of others. The attack targeted Bethlehem Memorial Methodist Church as worshippers gathered inside to attend a Sunday midday service. A suicide bomber detonated his explosives at the gate of the church.
As a result of this act of terror, about 9 of our men, women and children were martyred and nearly 50 were wounded. Today marks the Black Day of Quetta's history. We, on behalf of the entire Christian community, strongly condemn this act of terrorism. We pray for the families whose members were either martyred or injured in this incident.
A power outage at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson Airport has stranded tens of thousands of passengers and left them in darkened terminals. Around 1,000 flights were cancelled. The airport is the world's busiest, handling more than 250,000 passengers. After 11 hours, the electricity was restored, but the passenger logjam continues at the airport.
We get to the airport and we arrive to darkness and 1 million people, and we're like, oh no, not again. But it's not Delta's fault, you know.
French sailor François Gaba has set a new record for the fastest solo round-the-world navigation, smashing the previous record by 6 days and 10 hours. He completed the journey non-stop, confined to his trimaran sailing yacht since 4th November.
We've come to the end of this morning news brief. This and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Our actions have an impact on the environment.